when you're 52-19 and you got a guy who's the MVP of the league so far, the best thing that could have happened for both sides was to not have a hearing. And that was really smart by Aaron Judge and by the Yankees to say, we don't want to have to get together and do this publicly. It's not worth it.
And Tim Kurkjian covers baseball for ESPN. He's at his home. I'm down in a hotel in Atlanta, Tim. How do you love the halo effect here? I mean, is that appropriate or what?
Yeah, it's very heavenly, Buster, and very appropriate that the halo would be over you.
Yeah, I can hear the sarcasm in your voice. All right. There's so much that happened this weekend. So what I'm going to do is give you a menu of topics that you want to get to, and you can choose the order, okay?
Okay.
Not all of it's great, by the way. First and foremost, Bryce Harper suffered a broken thumb over the weekend, getting hit by a pitch by Blake Snell of the Padres. There was a huge brawl in Anaheim. A lot of baseball fights are kind of lame. There's the pushing and shoving and hold me back, but that thing was nasty. An incredible series between the Yankees and Astros, which included a no-hitter and then a walk-off home run. And what an emotional weekend for Freddie Freeman in Atlanta. Which one do you want to take first?
Well, I'm going to take the Yankee one first because I called the game on Saturday. So that's the fifth no-hitter that I have covered. First one I've called as a broadcaster, so that was pretty cool. So Cristian Javier, Buster, was unbelievably good. He is the first pitcher ever to allow no hits and strike out 13 against the Yankees in any game. I mean, that's just remarkable. And the way they won and the way they beat Garrett Cole, and they had a combined no-hitter. And the last time that happened, the Yankees was a combined no-hitter by the Astros in 2003 with six guys who did it. I mean, it was just a marvelous day at the stadium, even though the Yankees got no hit.
So we had Cristian Javier on Sunday Night Baseball the weekend before. And I got to tell you, as I saw that play out in Yankee Stadium, I was kind of like, you know, he's a really good pitcher, but he never struck me as being a guy with no-hit stuff. But that day he did.
Right. And Dusty Baker was telling me before the game, he said, this guy has a disappearing fastball is what he called it. But Dusty said, but the problem is you don't know why it disappears. You know, there are other guys, you know, Sid Fernandez would throw it out of his shirt like that, like he was throwing it uphill, and you understood how you couldn't see it. Koji Uehara had that great split, and he hid the ball so well that he could throw a fastball by you at 88 up in the strike zone. Well, that's what Javier could do, but Dusty said, you don't know why it disappears, which is what makes it so good. Well, it disappeared the whole day, and we also know he's got a really good slider, threw a couple of curveballs we're not used to seeing, changeups we're not used to seeing much of, and it was just dominant. So I was there, Buster, the night that Pedro Martinez struck out 17 Yankees. I covered that game on the radio also. So that was historic because the Yankees had never struck out 17 times in their own ballpark by one pitcher. And then equal history was made on Saturday. So, and then again, Buster, it came against a team that was 52-19 and was leading the league in home runs and runs scored. Amazing.
And then on Sunday, you have the Yankees being no-hit into the seventh inning. The first hit is a home run by Stanton. They come back and they win the game with a walk-off home run by Judge. What a phenomenal series this was. You know, I know there's been, you know, a lot of nasty feelings between the Astros and the Yankees through the years, but man, they put on a show when they go against each other.
Right. I remember David Cohn saying on Thursday night after that incredible game, like, if the rest of the series is going to be like this, we're in for a tremendous series. And ultimately, that's what they got. So, Buster, this is how beautiful baseball is. The Yankees went 16 consecutive hitless innings. To repeat, a team playing over 700 baseball, leads in homers and runs scored, and went 16 innings without a hit. The only teams that have done that since 1961, that's as far back as the Elias Sports Bureau could go, are the 73 A's and the 81 Dodgers. And both of those teams won the World Series. So there's no explanation to how this could have happened. But the Yankees had a great series and got their 10th walk-off win of the season. Buster, we are 73 games into the season. 1 out of every 7 games, the Yankees win with a walk-off. I mean, how unusual is that? Last 40 years, the Royals in 2000 are the only team to have at least 10 walk-off wins before July. It was an amazing weekend at Yankee Stadium.
And this, of course, was after Aaron Judge settled his arbitration case against the Yankees. His side, actually, the Yankees had gone to his side last Monday or Tuesday and offered to settle the midpoint in $19 million. And his side said no. And so the assumption was, okay, we're going to arbitration. He's going to bet big on himself again. But in the end, when the Yankees added a couple of incentive clauses, $250,000 if he wins the MVP, the World Series MVP clause, they get it done. And it feels like, as much as, Aaron Judge has so much on the table, that it was good that that he just said, you know what, I'm not going to worry about that, extra $2 million. I'm just going to focus on playing baseball this year. I think that was best for him. I think it was best for everybody. What about you?
Yeah, I really don't like those arbitration hearings. I had to cover them when I was a beat guy, and players would come out of there and they were angry. My team is going after me. You can't have that happen in the middle of a season when you're 52-19 and you got a guy who's the MVP of the league so far. The best thing that could have happened for both sides was to not have a hearing. And that was really smart by Aaron Judge and by the Yankees to say, we don't want to have to get together and do this publicly. It's not worth it.
All right, you got 3 more items on the menu. You got Harper, you got the BRAWL, you got Freddie Freeman.
Okay, I'm going to go with Freddie Freeman second. Look, Buster, I know it was an interesting weekend. I'm just going to start with, I thought it was kind of refreshing that there's a baseball player who's that sensitive, who loved the place he played for that time, the city in which he lived, and with everything he's been through as a man and as a family member. I thought it was more than okay that he was really, really emotional, and I didn't have any problem with it at all. And yet, as you reported several times, some of the Dodgers were wondering, which team are you on here? And I understand that also, but it was a great weekend of games and a really difficult / interesting / successful weekend for Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, here's Freddie Freeman talking about what it means to return to Atlanta.
It's hard to even look up and see people that I've been with for 15 years. So it's really hard to put into words. I can't even look up at you guys because I don't know how to get through it. So I was doing pretty good about an hour ago. Gosh.
Tim, he cried throughout the press conference on Friday when he arrived at the ballpark. He cried heavily during the ceremony when Brian Sitker gave him his championship ring. He had Brian Sitker, his good friend and manager, patting him on the back, basically saying, relax, relax, trying to help calm him. He was crying when he got introduced the first time at the plate. He was crying throughout. He was in the Braves clubhouse a couple of times. And I mentioned this on air last night and talked about it on radio over the weekend. Yes, there's a lot of his emotion was about gratitude for the Braves fans and how they treated he and his family. But I also think there was some anger and some sadness because based on what he experienced, he knows that while his first choice was to go back to the Braves, that didn't happen. And he's not happy about that. And he knows that the legacy could have been his, that one team legacy that Cal Ripken had, that Tony Gwynn had, that Chipper Jones had.
Yeah, I'm still, after all this time, I still don't understand why he's not the first baseman for the Braves, because I think it could have been done if Freddie Freeman just said, I want this to get done, I'll take less or whatever. Or if his agent had been a little bit more, I'm not sure what the word is, communicative about the deals that were being made. You certainly can't blame the Braves when they recognize we're at a stall. These things are stalled right now, these negotiations. We have to make sure we don't get left behind. And to get Matt Olson before Freddie Freeman signed was a very strange development. I just look back and I'm still not sure why this happened, because he's going to do great in LA. He's a great teammate. He's had a pretty good year, and I'm sure he's going to be wildly successful there. But every time I look at him, I still have in the back of my mind, why is he not on the Braves?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially because it's pretty clear based on what Freddie has said. Going to the Braves was his first choice, and he wound up taking a deal that was for more years for less money in total value when you factor in state tax in California and when you factor in all the deferred money that are part of that's part of the Dodger deal. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Freddie spoke with friends in Atlanta, some of his former teammates about the possibility of changing representation. We'll see if that happens. But Tim, just to give full context to this, back in the spring, after lockout ended, the Braves still had an offer on the table of about $135 million. There was a phone call from Casey Close, who's the head of XL, to the Braves head of baseball operations, Alex Anthopoulos, basically said, look, you have an hour to put your offers up to this level in order to get a deal. And the Braves didn't do it in that hour. And their feeling was, Anthopoulos' feelings as he hung up the phone was, you know what? He's got a bigger offer from the Dodgers or some other team. So they quickly pivoted to make that trade for Matt Olson, to sign him to a long-term deal, because they assumed that Freddie was going to land with another team. And that's where he wound up landing. But again, it was for less money, total value, for more years. And I think that's what has people really scratching their heads.
Right. And I'm still scratching my head. But I saw our Alden Gonzalez report yesterday that the Dodgers are hoping this brings closure to this for Freddie Freeman. We knew the trip back to Atlanta would be very, very emotional. But now, as the Dodgers are saying, it's time to move on. Like they might be playing the Braves in the playoffs. They might have to go to Atlanta in October, and they can't have this happen again if they're trying to win the World Series or beat the defending world champions. So let's see if it is indeed closure has been accomplished this weekend with Freddie Freeman. I'm not positive it has been.
No. Clayton Kershaw spoke with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on Saturday after watching Freddie so emotional on Friday night. And his quote to the AJC was, "It was very cool. He's obviously been a big contributor for our team, and I hope we're not second fiddle. It's a pretty special team over there too. I think whenever he gets comfortable over here, he'll really enjoy it." And so I think it's going to be important, Tim, for Freddie to demonstrate that to the Dodgers. Yes?
Yes. And as we know, Clayton Kershaw doesn't speak a whole lot. And when he does speak, you have to listen to him. Whatever he says resonates, because he never says anything off the top of his head. He always thinks it through. And I hope we're not the second fiddle was, I think, very telling. And I think it was just a general reminder that you're on our team and we're going to need you at your very best if we're going to win the World Series and if we're going to beat the team that you played for the last 12 years.
So how terrible do you feel for Bryce Harper, now out indefinitely after suffering this thumb fracture?
It's just awful. I mean, this guy is an elite player again. He won an MVP last year. He's having a tremendous season. He is playing through an elbow injury that a lot of guys wouldn't even think about playing through. And now he breaks the thumb. And who knows how long he's going to be out. And look, Buster, I don't think he should get any surgery on the elbow now, shut down the season or anything else. But that has been brought up. Would that be the smarter thing to do? Well, the Phillies are still in the playoff race. They haven't been in the playoffs in a long time. They have to get him healthy and bring him back as quickly as possible. But part of you has to think, poor guy might need 2 surgeries, one on the thumb, one on the elbow. Why not get them both done now, get it over with, and bring him back completely healthy sometime in 2023? But I just can't do that. You're the Phillies. You need to win. He's your best player. Let's get the thumb healed and move on from there.
So I think you are mind reading what the Phillies are thinking. I made some calls on this yesterday. And so what's going to happen, from what I've been told, is that Bryce Harper is going to get his thumb checked. They're going to hear from the specialist. And if he can have surgery and come back this year, that's going to be the focus. Now, if, in fact, and by the way, the feeling is that his elbow is healing. They've seen signs of healing in some of the exams that they've done. And so he could come back potentially if the specialist says that, he'll be able to heal with the thumb and be productive this year. If the news they get from the specialist is, you know what, he's going to be out a long time, he might miss the rest of the season, then I think, yeah, that is on the table, that he'll have the elbow taken care of at the same time as the thumb. That's information that'll come out, I think, as this week goes along. And lastly, Tim, how about that fight in Anaheim? We always talk about baseball fights being, oftentimes just little shoving matches and people yelling at each other. That was pretty nasty, which I think if you have a situation where the best player in baseball, who never gets angry at anybody, gets mad, feeling like that, you went over the top and throwing that baseball near my head, you figured there was going to be a reaction from the Angels.
Absolutely. And I think that's what started it all. You can't throw, whether there was intent or not, you can't throw near Mike Trout's head and get away with it. And the Angels made sure they didn't. And then it looks like they threw at Julio Rodriguez's head, and he is, one of the best rookies out there. So it's very interesting who they chose to go throw at, a kid who's just, in his first year in the big leagues. Shows you a little bit about Julio Rodriguez. Buster, to me, this was two frustrated teams that have underachieved this year, and they are really frustrated. And I'm not surprised that something happened yesterday. Scott Servais and Phil Nevin are both old school guys in their own right. They played at a similar time, and this is how you used to get retribution. I just think both sides overreacted. But I still go back, Buster, to what Earl Weaver used to say. Earl would say, look, whatever you do, don't throw at anybody. Whatever you do, don't get in a fight, because you're going to get suspended. And our guys are better than their guys, and we're going to lose on that exchange. Well, here are two teams that are 5-6 games under 500 that have to win as many as possible to make the playoffs. And now both teams are going to be without key players for multiple games. And I understand you got to stick up for your teammate. I really like that about baseball. I'm just not sure they did it the right way this time.
Yeah, and I got to say, when these fights break out now, I tend to look for individual players, with that brawl yesterday. Where was Mike Trout in all of that? And wondering, geez, I hope he doesn't get hurt in the middle of that. Or Rodriguez, hoping he doesn't get hurt in the middle of that. Anthony Rendon had surgery, and he's out there in the middle of that. And by the way, the strangest sight, how about throwing a bunch of sunflower seeds and bubble gum? Raisel Iglesias, the closer for the Angels. What was that about?
Buster, I've seen a lot of things thrown on the field, bats, coolers, all sorts of things. I've never seen sunflower seeds, which of course feed the players every day. It's their most important thing, chucked on the field like that. And it's a closer that did it. What is he doing in the dugout anyway at that point? I didn't understand most of the brawl yesterday. Doug Rader, who I loved covering for all those years with the Rangers, once told me, well, I was hoping we wouldn't go through the year without one really good fight. He really felt like it could galvanize the team. I'm just not sure that would galvanize anybody with what happened yesterday. Stick up for your guys, but both those teams are going to lose on that exchange.
Oh, my goodness. The folks in Major League Baseball, when they look at these situations, they go over videotape to determine, okay, who was an aggressor in this fight. And I got to say, Tim, I watched replays this 6 or 7 times, and I don't even think I touched the surface in terms of tracking the movements of every player. If they wound up something in the range of 15 fine suspensions out of this, it wouldn't shock me, because there were just so many scrums all over the place.
Right. And only eight guys were ejected, but it's possible more than 8 guys potentially could be suspended for a game or more, because you're right. Once you go back and see somebody, he's throwing a punch there, that was not good for the game, and certainly not good for the Angels or the Mariners.
All right, Tim. Well, great to see you. Great to talk with you. And I'll talk to you again next week.
All right. You should consider bringing that halo back to your house.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.